With the tenure of its current president Sourav Ganguly and Secretary Shah set to expire in September this year, the Board of Cricket Control in India has now sought an urgent hearing before the Supreme Court on an application to approve the proposed amendments in its constitution and allow extension of tenure, or at least allow the office bearers to continue to hold office in the state cricketing bodies. These proposed amendments were passed by the AGM in December 2019 but have not been approved by the Supreme Court since, because no hearing had happened in this case in the last 2 years. The application that was moved before the Supreme Court, in fact, says that the current constitution of the BCCI, which was approved by the Supreme Court, had been created before an elected AGM existed and had been created by the Committee of Administrators who did not have any experiences in how the ground realities of the three-tier system of the Cricket Control Board has to be functional. In fact, they have said that now that an elected body of the AGM exists, they should be allowed to change the rules as they see fit. Now, the proposed amendments, however, could be a sticking point before the court and have in fact been criticized outside of court by sportspersons and interested parties. These proposed amendments say that the restriction that was imposed under the constitution of the BCCI, which says that if a person has been an office bearer of the BCCI or the state board for 6 continuous years, they cannot then hold any office post in the state or in the BCCI for a cooling off period of 3 years. The proposed amendment, however, says that this kind of a cooling off period would only apply to persons who are office bearers in the BCCI. In fact, this would mean that any person who's been an office bearer of the BCCI can then go back and become an office bearer in a state board. In addition, the 6-year restriction would no longer apply on persons who have only held office in the state board for the last 6 years. This means that any person could theoretically hold office for a continuous period of longer than 9 years. In fact, even after that 9-year period, under the newly proposed amendments, the person who has been in office could still continue to be part of the governing committee itself, and the time restriction, which was specifically introduced by the Supreme Court to ensure that life members and entitled members are removed from sporting bodies, that provision will effectively be removed. The proposed amendments also have certain other provisions that could prove problematic. The Supreme Court ordered constitution and the approval given by the Lodha committee had said that the control of sports bodies should be with the sports persons. But these proposed amendments say that the apex council of the BCCI and the secretary of the BCCI will continue to have supervision and control over the day-to-day activities of the BCCI. In addition, they have also given extensive powers to the secretary to manage the BCCI as well as give instructions to the state boards, which is something that had been removed in the existing constitution. The AGM's application, in fact, also raises a very interesting question. They have said that the mandate under the constitution that any changes would have to be approved by the Supreme Court, that provision also needs to go, because now there is an elected AGM and there are persons with field experience, with ground experience of managing the Board of Cricket Control and the state boards who are now in charge, and therefore the Supreme Court no longer needs to approve these changes. The question now is, will the court accept these arguments? The matter was mentioned for urgent hearing by Senior Advocate P.S. Patwalia before the Chief Justice of India, and the Chief Justice has assured that he will see that the matter is likely to be heard next week. With Shah and Sourav Ganguly's tenures hanging in the balance, the BCCI wants the amendments to be approved as soon as possible so that the current governing persons in the BCCI and the state boards can continue to hold on to their seats. However, the question is, will the Supreme Court accept these arguments? Because remember, the changes in the constitution had specifically been made so that the BCCI comes within the National Sports Code, and the court had noted that there cannot be continuous control of the same persons on the cricketing bodies. But these proposed changes say that it is the people who are in the field, who are on the ground, which should be allowed to retain control, particularly since the BCCI is a registered society and has elected members, which means that the courts cannot control and continue to control what the society does. The matter is likely to be heard next week, but this hearing will be very, very crucial to see what happens to the future of the cricketing bodies and, in fact, other sports bodies in the country. In New Delhi, this is Anisha Mathur for India Today.